Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of the absolute most fascinating demographic shifts happening right now. Usually, when we think about global economics, our minds go straight to trade deals or major tech breakthroughs. But the real hidden engine driving our future? It's demographics. It's the literal age of the people living, working, and spending in any given country. So we're going to unpack a recent, really eye-opening study covered by the Economic Times that completely flips the script on how we look at one of the world's most populous nations. We're exploring this wild phenomenon of aging before riches, specifically looking at India's trajectory heading into the year 2050.
So what actually happens when the world's youngest nation suddenly grows old? For decades, the whole global narrative has painted India as this ultimate youth powerhouse, right? A nation just bursting with young talent ready to drive global growth for generations to come. But here's the thing, new data is flashing some major warning signs that this youthful era has a strict expiration date. We're looking at a scenario where a massive, ground-up societal transformation is about to happen, and not a century from now, but in just a few short decades. This one question sets up a profound narrative tension that's going to dictate the economic stability of not just one country, but the entire global market.
Section 1. The Young India Myth and Shifting Demographics.
It's really easy to just assume there's this limitless youthful workforce out there. Like it's just this inexhaustible pool of young labor ready to manufacture goods, write software, and build infrastructure forever. And honestly, that's exactly the assumption that major companies and policymakers have been banking on. But the reality? Well, it's quite different. Rapid population aging is already starting to set in. This recent study makes it crystal clear that this youthful phase isn't some permanent state. It's actually a temporary demographic window, and it's closing way faster than anyone really anticipated. Section 2. The 2050 reality check. Staggering numbers.
20%? That is the massive, honestly shocking statistic from the study that we really need to anchor ourselves to today. By the year 2050, a full one-fifth of India's entire population will be over 60 years old. When you apply that percentage to a population of over 1.4 billion people, we are literally talking about hundreds of millions of elderly citizens. This isn't your standard, slow, multi-century evolution. No, this is a rapid, completely unprecedented demographic pivot happening right before our eyes, fundamentally rewriting the structural makeup of the nation in the span of just a single generation.
By 2050, 1 in 5 citizens will be seniors. Just think about what that practically means for every single family, every community, and every business out there. The slice of the population that represents the elderly is expanding rapidly, and it creates this immediate ticking clock scenario for the other 80%. Because that 80% is going to be the ones who have to support the infrastructure, the healthcare, and the massive economic demands of that growing 20%.
Section 3. Aging before rich and the macroeconomic danger. This all really boils down to something called the demographic dividend. Basically, that's this magic economic growth window you get when your working-age population outnumbers your dependents, meaning the really young and the elderly. This is the golden opportunity, where a country can just supercharge its economy, generate massive tax revenue, and build serious generational wealth. But of course, here's the catch. This window absolutely does not stay open forever. For India, this prime opportunity for unprecedented economic acceleration is rapidly closing as the population continues to age.
Historically speaking, Western nations experienced immense wealth accumulation first, and that was followed by a very, very gradual aging process over many decades. Essentially, they got rich, they built their hospitals, they created massive pension funds, and then they got old. But India's trajectory? The wealth is still developing. Per capita income is still growing, but that rapid aging phase is going to hit fast by 2050. It's a total historical anomaly. They're facing the demographic challenges of the developed world on an incredibly accelerated timeline, but without that same accumulated financial cushion to fall back on. The crucial paradox we're facing here is this: growing old before growing rich. I really want you to pause and just let that sink in for a second. This is the central macroeconomic trap identified in the study. If a nation's workforce ages out of their prime labor years before the country is fully transitioned into a high-income economy, it seriously risks getting caught in a developmental bottleneck that is incredibly difficult to ever escape from.
Section 4. Systemic strains and the real-world fallout.
So what does this actually look like on the ground? Well, the study points out several massive systemic hurdles. First off, we've got a shrinking workforce relative to dependents, which simply means fewer taxpayers are going to be funding the needs of way more retirees. Next up is the severe strain on hospital infrastructure. An elderly population requires a fundamentally different and, let's be honest, much more expensive type of healthcare system that focuses heavily on chronic diseases and long-term care.
On top of that, we're looking at looming national pension crises and a really profound lack of state-funded social safety nets. Unlike the West, where nationalized care provides a sort of baseline, a massive portion of India's aging workforce actually operates in the informal sector. That means they are heading straight toward retirement without any formal financial safeguards.
The crisis becomes pretty much impossible to ignore when you look at the massive gap between this incoming wave of elderly citizens who are going to require care and the comparatively tiny infrastructure of current state-funded safety nets actually available to support them. It's a profound developmental gap, and it's going to need to be bridged in record time.
Section 5. Race against time in the 2050 deadline.
Right now, present day, that demographic dividend window is still technically open. There's still some time to act, to build that wealth and to skill up the current youth. But as we move into the midterm, the accelerating aging is going to noticeably start straining the workforce and the infrastructure. And then, finally, we hit that hard 2050 deadline. 20% of the population is over 60, and the demographic window of opportunity firmly closes. The fundamental structure of the economy will be forever changed.
Which brings us right back to that anchor quote from the Economic Times study, India to grow old before it grows rich. That isn't just some catchy headline for clicks. It's literally the overarching thesis of our entire explainer today. It's a powerful warning about the trajectory of one of the world's most important economies. It challenges all that conventional wisdom of perpetual youth, and it demands an immediate, laser focus on building wealth and infrastructure at an absolute breakneck speed. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Can a nation actually rewrite its demographic destiny before the clock runs out? The data is set, right? The aging process cannot be stopped. But the economic outcome, that is still being written. Will there be enough rapid wealth generation, policy shifts, and infrastructure development in these next 2 decades to support this incoming wave? It's a monumental challenge, and how it's handled is absolutely going to shape the global economy for the rest of the century. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating topic. Stay curious, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.